To the smallest, and on the second race day it was the turn of the offshore circuit racers. OCRs are a combination of normal offshore racing and circuit racing. The use of smaller circuits means that there are regular battles for position, unlike true offshore racing where boats tend to get spread out over the larger course. Another important feature of OCR is that everyone competes on equal terms. The engines are not allowed to be modified. They must remain exactly as they arrived from the factory. OCR is subdivided into three classes, A, B and C, depending on engine size. In this race, all eyes are on the battle taking place in Class A, which is for 2-litre engine boats. Using a small bay as part of the circuit brought the action close to the spectators, and the action didn't disappoint them. There was a terrific tussle between A28 and A50.
And here side by side into lap 7, Nick Bosch tries to take Alan and Paul Baker on the outside. He fails. Now, will he change to the inside of the course? He has. Nick Bosch took an awful lot of spray, almost hooked, but goes through. He's going to try and take Bob and Paul Baker on this mark, I'm absolutely sure. But the Bakers just hang on. Absolutely scintillating stuff from Nick Bosch. He tries again, and he's got to do it this time. Nick Bosch found that extra power that's given him 7 wins in a row, and he's passed Bob Baker, but Bob Baker's on the inside and might retake the lead on this boy. Can Nick Bosch shut him out? Oh, just, and Paul and Bob Baker came off that wake and almost went over.
In the B class, there was a clear leader.
So leading in B class, still Francis and Stuart Whitley, the 18-foot Shakespeare with the 130 horsepower Yamaha, 61 points, had them in the lead in the championship this morning, and they're going to maintain that, I think. There's a battle going on here for second and third positions, and on the inside, B6 Interlink, Dave Wilcock. Now he needs these points badly, and he threw and into second position. So that was a good mark indeed. Dave Wilcock's going to have the clear water here, I think, just to pull away fractionally, but very tight on the inside, Alan Healy and Brian Healy.
Halfway through the race, the 2 leaders in Class C were level pegging. This class is for OCRs with engines up to 130 horsepower. Mark Pyle in Pile Driver and Martin Bull in Hullabaloo were to collide out of sight of the crowd. There was some confusion over how many laps were being run. Everyone thought this was the end of the race, including the crews.
They're side by side as they come towards the line, and Bob and Paul Baker have their nose in front. But 28 Samsung Cameras tries to come back. Nick Bosch tries, but he's not going to make it. It's going to be a victory, I think, for Paul and Bob Baker. But Bosch comes again, and on the line. It was so close.
It wasn't the end, and the crews carried on just in case. This is how the race ended for the OCR Bs.
And it's round the mark and into the final finish straight for Rebel 2, Stuart Whitley and Francis Whitley. They had but a 2-point lead when they started the race this morning over Pacific Alliance B90 of Robert McCarthy, but they're going to stretch that lead today. They come towards the checkered flag. What a wonderful race they've had. Second for most of it, but 3 laps out, took the lead and never relinquished it. And as we come to the final mark, it's Nick Bosch who's pulled away once again from Paul and Bob Baker. 1 lap from home, they made a mistake. They gave Paul and Bob Baker a chance, which they took. And here, on the start-finish line, on the last lap, Paul and Bob Baker actually got through. But it's the mettle of the man. Nick Bosch, 4 times national champion, has pulled him away again, some 50 yards, as he makes a line now. The engineer from Cornwall, with his co-driver Steve Kent, cross the line, take the checkered flag, and they know they had a race today from this boat behind, with Paul and Bob Baker. My goodness me, how close they got at the end of the last lap.
C11 with Mark Pyle and Charlie Hulbert were the winners in C. They obviously came off best in that brush with Martin Bull. As soon as the race was over, there was some unusual action in the bay. At first, spectators thought that someone was in trouble, but it was just a display of the kind of safety cover that's available during all the races in Guernsey. In those rough conditions on the first day, when she was navigating for Rob Mills, she hurt her back. For the crews, their families and followers, it was time for some fun. The parade and party is as much a part of the event as the racing. With the fun over, it was time for more racing. The venue is ideally suited to the event. The pits area has a marina on one side and a harbour on the other, so dozens of boats can be launched in a short time. The next event was for the second and final heats for the OCRs, a reminder that they're divided into A, B and C groups according to engine size. A28, Samsung Cameras with Nick Bosch and Steve Kent won the first heat and now had a clear lead in the National Championship table with 125 points. Behind them, A50, Baltic Exchange, was trailing with 78 points. Brothers Bob and Paul Baker had second place in the first heat. On to Bs, and leading at this stage was B3, Rebel 2, with father and son, Stuart and Francis Whitley. They had 74 points after a win in Heat 1. Just behind them, with 66 points, came B6 Interlink, Dave Wilcock and Julian Abbott, with a second in the first heat and 66 points. In C, Hullabaloo, C51 led. Martin Bull and Chris Yeo had 70 points, despite having to abandon the first heat after the collision with C11. C11 won that heat, but Mark Pyle and Charlie Hulbert still trailed with 45 points. If the first round had been keenly contested, the crowd had seen nothing yet. With the season nearing its end, every point now counted. It meant that crews would fight from the start to the finish of this last race, and some very close contests.
And the battle for C-Class is absolutely raging. On the inside, the blue boat of Martin Bull, C51, has just been passed by Red Rage, C23, Neil Garnham and James Stewart. But Martin Bull comes back. He's got the inside line on this mark. It's going to be very, very tight indeed, but he almost goes on that mark. Again, the phantom chine riding, as he did on the last lap. But that was a very, very risky manoeuvre indeed, but Martin Bull got away with that one. He comes out of that mark and leads. Red Rage, of course, C23, the boat of Neil Garnham and James Stewart. So Martin Bull leads the championship, and that's maybe why he leads, because he's a very brave driver indeed.
There was no let-up in the pressure in this, the final heat for the offshore circuit racing class, as they competed for national championship points in the Guernsey round.
The end of lap 3 for Nick Marsh. Now that lead that he had, slightly less than the lead he had on the previous lap. I must say that. So Paul and Bob Baker beginning to catch him. Steve Kent looked over his shoulder then, and he will be telling Nick Marsh that they are closing slightly. Nick Marsh is through into Havelet Bay. Right behind them, and that lead definitely decreasing. They have pulled back something like 100 metres on that lap, Paul and Bob Baker. They really have bridesmaid for so long in this championship. The 4 times national champion, of course, right ahead of them. Pink Panther, Dave Yeoman and Paul Yeoman, the 140 horsepower Yamaha on the 18'6" Argo, a very, very light boat indeed. Again, into Havelet Bay with a lead of somewhere around a quarter of a mile. Now this is very, very comfortable for them indeed. Their 4th place in the championship should improve. And in C-Class, Martin Bull is through. After that tremendous battle, of course, with C11, car driver and Mark Pyle on the last lap, he's got away. Of course, 6 straight wins for him before he came here to Guernsey, and now he has something, as you can see, like a 100-metre lead, and that's very, very comfortable for him indeed. In third position, and that was very, very tight. Red Rage, Neil Garnham and James Stewart almost clipped that boy as they went through.
Nick Marsh was to make a foolish navigational error. Foolish because he'd made exactly the same mistake in the first heat.
Nick Marsh has made a mistake. He's gone the wrong side of the boy as he did yesterday, and Paul and Bob Baker go through and into the lead. Now that is absolutely amazing. There's still a lead in B class for B7, Pink Panther, Dave Yeoman and Paul Yeoman. basic racing for them last year, and they're enjoying it as well. A wave there from Dave Yeoman. That shows how comfortable it is for him today. He's absolutely delighted. And at the end of lap 5, Nick Barsh and Steve Kent have regained the lead. My word, they were behind. They were neck and neck as they came down the back straight. But Nick Barsh and Steve Kent just holding on to that lead. Right behind them then, Paul and Bob Baker, and they're going through. And Nick Barsh having to go around the outside for the back markers. I thought for a minute there might be a gap for Paul and Bob Baker, but they couldn't find it. So Martin Bull's C51 Hullabaloo, of course, holed yesterday in a collision with pile driver Mark Powell. Could so easily have sunk, but they repaired that hole. It's a good repair, obviously holding up. He leads by 200 metres. He goes into his final lap. And so the final mark is turned by Nick Barsh. He took that one very wide, but he can afford to because he still has a 200 metre lead on the second boat of Paul and Bob Baker. And it's down the finish straight for the national champion. Boat absolutely impeccably prepared. He's had the cushion of 2 mistakes, believe it or not, in this championship, and still come back to win both races. He is indeed a true champion, takes a checkered flag now, and so it's 9 out of 9 for Nick Barsh this season. And there in second position, they made another great race of it. They got in front of Nick Barsh on the 6th lap when he made a mistake. But it was never ever going to be quite their day. But my, what a championship they've had. B7 then, Pink Panther, Dave Yeoman and Paul Yeoman. Just 200 metres to go for them, and they're celebrating already. They won the last time out at Milford Haven. Not too special a race for them yesterday, but today in the championship, it's first. It's another maximum points for the husband and wife team. Sidewinder 2, Alan Healy and Brian Healy. They led, of course, in the first race. Couldn't quite get to grips with this one. Cross the line now, and I think they'll be reasonably happy with that. And it's the last mark of the Guernsey Powerboat Festival for this man, number C51, of course, Martin Bull in Hullabaloo, the championship leader. And he had to work overnight on that boat. Holed yesterday in a collision with the boat that's now in second position, that was in front of him yesterday. They got that boat repaired, they got back into racing today, and so it will be when he crosses the line. 7 wins in the championship. The boat there almost saluting as they come across. Celebrations from the crew, that's for sure. Though Martin Bull wins. In second position then, Mark Powell and Charlie Holbert again kept the pressure on, but never quite fast enough. And third for C23 Red Rage, Neil Garnham and James Stewart. And my, what strides they've made in racing this year. Basic last year, nationally first this year. Great season for them.
So, in A-class, Barsh in A28 ended on 136 national championship points. The Bakers in A50 left Guernsey in second place with only 85 points. In B, the Whitleys ended on 78 points. In B3, Rebel 2. Not far behind were McCarthy and Lewis in B90 on 67 points. In C, Martin Bull in Hullabaloo led with 82 points. And well behind on 53, Mark Pyle in Pile Driver. The next race was for Class 3 and again